Governor Bush, what will you do for Americans with disabilities, particularly those who are interested in employment and opportunities?
I think that's the great opportunity for our country, is to make sure that everybody's God-given talents are fully met. And so making sure that there are using the bully pulpit and using federal programs to make sure that employment opportunities exist. When I was governor of the state of Florida, we created a partnership with the chambers of commerce around the state, and we got sponsors in every city, and we ended up creating a job fair, in effect, for people with intellectual and physical disabilities, and it was extraordinarily successful. In fact, I would say Publix, a supermarket chain based in Florida, is probably one of the largest employers of people with disabilities, and so it requires leadership first and foremost. People realize, when they realize it's in their benefit, their business benefit, it's not a charitable act, it's actually to create a climate where customers enjoy going to their places of business, and employees like it as well. When you get that kind of attitude working, you're going to find that there'll be a lot more employment opportunities.
How do you feel about captions on campaign commercials and other sorts of accessibility tools? You're the only candidate in the Republican Party who has captions on your ads.
Well, because I was listening to you, for starters. I mean, it's important to be open and make sure that every vote counts. Every message is important to make sure that people have a chance to access your message. So it was common sense when it was brought to my attention we weren't as compliant as we needed to be, to make sure that everybody got to read or see the message.
How did you learn about disability issues?
Well, I learned it principally through a friend of mine, Berthia Aponte de la Rosa, who is an extraordinary woman who's now one of my best friends. And I met her in 1998 when I was campaigning, and she became my teacher, in effect. I took the time to listen and to learn a lot, and she took the time to teach me. The thing that really was a motivating factor in this was when she said that her biggest fear, her and Milton's biggest fear as parents were whether they were going to outlive their child. And that's a pretty profound feeling and a powerful emotion. And it just hit me. I just realized, if you believe that life's a gift from God and everybody has a chance to make a contribution, then we need to make sure that all that capacity is reached. And so having the ability to be a student rather than a teacher was really the catalyst for my sensitivity. And then out of crisis came an opportunity, because the programs for the developmentally disabled in Florida were about to be taken over by a federal judge. If that doesn't get your attention as a governor, literally in the first week of office, this threat took place in a federal courtroom where I was summoned. And it gave me an opportunity to act on my core belief by getting funding and transforming the programs and working with people like Berthie. We took Florida from the very back of the pack probably to one of the models for the country.
As governor, you really did do a lot with education for people with disabilities. Can you talk about education standards for people with disabilities?
Absolutely. Look, Florida had, at the time, I created probably the most radical reforms of any state. Other states like Indiana and Louisiana have followed suit, but ours was the first, and it was a mighty struggle. And we realized as we went along that we always needed to have accommodations. But one of the things I insisted on was that people with disabilities had to participate in the accountability system. If you exclude them, the net result is they don't get the attention. But in our system, where we graded schools based on student learning and every kid counted, we had the greatest learning gains with people with disabilities because they mattered. And so it was a powerful lesson of accountability. The second thing that I realized was that public schools aren't the perfect setting for every family. So we created the first statewide voucher program for kids with disabilities. And in Florida, if your IEP is not being met, a mom or a dad can unilaterally take the state and local dollars and use those dollars to go to a private school. 30,000 families take advantage of that program. It's by far and away the largest voucher program for kids with disabilities. And as I said, in terms of the public schools, the greatest learning gains are in Florida. And so the lesson learned is when you empower people rather than systems or government or monopolies or bureaucracies, if you empower families, you're going to get a better result.
How's that work for veterans or for people with mental health differences, your views about disability issues?
It works in the following way. I just think the institutionalized ways of the past we need to be gone with them.
What do you mean?
I think we need to move to a community-based model, back to the notion of empowering people and allowing people to take advantage of the services that are out there without saying which form you have to fill out or which program you have to go to, because this is the only one we're going to fund. If you turn the dynamic away from the supplier to the receiver, from the provider to the customer, if you will, of the service, you're going to get a much more customized result. And in the 21st century world we live in, you can do this. You can do this as it relates to across the policy spectrum, whether it's healthcare or job training or education for sure. In every case, how you treat veterans, giving them access to the care that they deserve, giving them the choice to make these decisions is really important.
That's terrific, Governor. Anything else you want voters with disabilities to know about? We're 1 in 5 Americans. What else do you want us to know?
Well, that I respect every American, that I think everybody should have a chance to make a contribution, that we shouldn't cast away people, say, oh, life's not fair, get in line, we'll take care of you. That the better approach is to recognize that life is a gift from God. Everybody can make a contribution, and what we need to do is empower families and people to be able to pursue their dreams as they see fit.
Thank you, Governor. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.